I'm back with another episode of the Planet Doug podcast. This one for Friday, November. No, I already got the date wrong. Friday, December 6th, 2024. It's just shy of 7 o'clock in the morning, and I'm about to make some noise because I'm going to turn on the air conditioner. I had it off for a while because it was too cold in here, but now it's getting too warm. Yeah, I'm still here in the city of Medan, and as I talked about in the previous episode, I still haven't fired up my new laptop, and today is finally the day to do it, because as I talked about in yesterday's episode, I still needed to do a few things to get ready for that, and because of complicated technological reasons, one thing I needed to do was change all the passwords on my various online accounts because I'm currently logged in on another laptop that broke down, and I returned to the people that gave it to me, or as in this case, it turned out they lent it to me, and then I returned it to them, but it was experiencing a mechanical breakdown, and I got the blue screen of death. But when that happened, all of my accounts were open in Google Chrome, so I'm a little bit concerned about that laptop floating around the world somewhere, going to a repair shop, being sold to somebody new, and they turn it on. It's like, oh, who's this guy Doug? And let's go look at all his emails and basically invade my life. So anyway, I needed to figure out a way to log out of everything on that laptop. And there seemed to be various options for doing it, but as always, it wasn't that clear. So I don't know, language, when it comes to technology, you would think it would be the most precise, mathematical, logical language possible. But of course, we're talking about human beings creating all this stuff, so it isn't logical. So, for example, I would find out on the internet that it's possible to go into your accounts, say your Google account, and then you can go to your list of devices, and then you can see all the devices that you're logged in on. And then according to the internet, all you have to do is click on that device and say, log out from this device. And I thought, perfect. That's wonderful. That's exactly what I wanted to do, and I had no idea you could do that. Let's go do that. But then when I go into my Google account and then I go to devices, I can actually see it. It's an Asus VivoBook laptop, and it says, yeah, that is one of my devices where I'm logged in on Google Chrome. And then, of course, I look for the button or the menu where it says log out from this device, because that's what everything told me I needed to do. Go here, select the device, now choose log out from this device. But when I get there, that button doesn't exist. Instead, there's a button that says remove. Like it says, remove this device. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? And then it has an explanation underneath it that says, well, this is what happens when you remove a device. It means that it will no longer appear on your list of devices. And you can't possibly get anything more vague and more unclear than that. Okay, now I've removed it, which means I can no longer access it. But does it mean I've logged out from it? Is that what happened? It doesn't tell you. It doesn't say that. So then I go back to the internet and I say, okay, on the Google account systems, it says remove a device. What happens when you remove a device? Is that the same thing as logging out from that device? And people say, no, you haven't actually logged out. All you've done is remove it from your list. So you no longer have access to it. But anyway, and then other people say, no, it does log you out, but nobody knows exactly. So it ends up being a complete, vague, pointless exercise where the language isn't clear. and they say this menu exists when in reality it doesn't. They say this button exists when it doesn't. All of this stuff just drives me crazy. So in this case, after all of my research, I decided that, well, removing the device, I don't know whether that does what I need it to do. I don't understand what that means. But it does seem clear that if you change your password, so if I go into Google account and I just change my password for Google, that will automatically log me out of everything else because, yeah, you've changed your password. So when you try to go back to your tablet or your phone or your laptop, then it will say, oh, you've been logged out. You have to log in with your new password. So that seemed to be the most secure option. So I set out to do that. And then as I was doing it, I did it on one of my phones I think I did Google first, and then I changed my Google account password. And then I got the message that, okay, we have changed your password, but you are still logged in on all your other devices. I was like, oh, come on. I mean, can you guys make up your mind? Like, the whole point of changing the password was for security, and I just assumed that meant, okay, now you're going to be logged out of all your other devices. But they said, no, for your convenience, even though you've changed your password, you're still logged in everywhere else. And I was like, oh, for Pete's sake, will you guys get your act together? Can you help me out? Can you help a dummy out here? So then after I changed my Google account's password on one phone, I looked at my other phones and they were still all logged in. So that made me think, well, of course now I'm still logged in on my Asus VivoBook that I no longer have access to. So that didn't work either. And then my only option was to remove it from my list of devices and then cross my fingers and hope that some stranger in the future won't have access to my entire online life. I just don't know. As usual, I'm drowning in a morass of unclear language and things that I don't understand in the world of technology. But anyway, changing my password, I mean, it doesn't hurt anyway, right? They recommend that you change your password constantly. So I thought, well, since I started this project, I might as well continue. So I spent much of the day, if not most of the day, changing passwords on all of my accounts. So my Google account, Microsoft, and I've got so many online accounts. I didn't even get to the end of them. I didn't change passwords for all of my accounts. I only changed the passwords for those accounts that were open on the Asus VivoBook at the time when it shut down. So yeah, that was most of yesterday. And of course, I also recorded a Planet Doug podcast yesterday. I ended up telling the story of the woman from China that I met and how she was trying to book a train to the airport, and I overheard her conversation, and I could tell, yeah, she was having the same problems that I've had. And since I've already overcome those problems and I downloaded all of the appropriate apps and eWallets and all the things I needed to book the train ticket, I thought I could help her out. And I told that whole story. I think it ended up being like an hour-long story that I told on the on the podcast about working with her and finally being able to help her out, which was great. I essentially just bought the train ticket for her in her name, but using my apps. And the fascinating thing about that experience was because she was from China, her phone was from China, all her accounts were based in China, and even though she was in Indonesia, she was still affected by the Chinese firewall, and she was unable to use any of these apps. As she explained it to me, I can't go to the Google Play Store, so I can't download that app. She can't even use Google Translate. It won't work on her phone. And it was a very eye-opening conversation for me to hear her talk about that, because every morning I wake up here in my world and I can tell an hour-long story about my struggles with technology, with apps, and the new modern app-driven world, the cashless society we're living in now. And I'm struggling, but now can you imagine if I'm struggling and I have access to everything because I'm from Canada? Imagine what it's like for her to be traveling to a new country and then still being behind the great Chinese firewall. Wow, I can't even imagine what that must be like. It feels like I have to use 20 workarounds a day just to accomplish simple tasks. But she has to find a workaround for everything she ever wants to do. But anyway, I left off the story yesterday with a message from her, because even though I bought her a ticket and it was in her name and everything was fine, but she didn't have the app on her phone, right? The app was on my phone. She just had copies of the barcode that you scan to go in, and she had a copy of the ticket, but they were just basically screenshots. They were not actually from the app. And I was 99% positive that would be absolutely fine. The ticket didn't even really need to be in her name. I could have just had the ticket in my name, because all you do is scan the code. Nobody's checking IDs. It's not like an international flight and boarding an airport, a jet. You're just getting onto a local commuter train out to the airport. You just have to scan the ticket and off you go. But still, it seemed wise to have it in her name, just so that she's feeling comfortable that, okay, this is my ticket. But then I was a little bit concerned that something would go wrong. So I did ask her, like, could you send me a message when you're on the train? I'd really like to know the story and that you made it okay. And then she sent me a message saying, I'm on the train. This was right before the train left. So she got on the train and everything was fine. And then I sent her a message in reply saying, oh, that's great to hear. Thank you for letting me know. And then I asked her a follow-up question, like, did you have any trouble finding the airport train? Because it's a bit tricky. And I was wondering if it was really hard for her to locate it. And then she didn't reply during the day, but I did get a reply from her late last night. And she told me, no, she had no trouble at all. She just went into the train station, and then she just started asking people, like, where do I go? And then the staff at the train station helped her get there. And then, yeah, everything after that was fine. But she did say in her message, kind of sorry for the late reply, but I didn't get your message until right now. And she said, because of she didn't say Chinese firewall, she said something, because of the network I use, all of the messages are delayed by many hours. So even though I sent her the message at 8 o'clock in the morning, she didn't get it until like 6 o'clock at night. And it sounds like that's how it always works. So even though she's able to use WhatsApp, it sounds like whatever's going on with the Chinese systems, all the messages are delayed by like 10 hours. I don't know if there's censorship or it's just slow. I don't know what's going on there. But apparently, so she can't even use WhatsApp to have a conversation with people in real time because the messages are all delayed by 10 hours. At least that's the impression I got from her message. And then she did say that she was in Jakarta now. Her flight was over, and she was not enjoying the Jakarta experience because of the heavy traffic there. And then I wrote back to her in typical Doug fashion, a very long, elaborate message, and I did ask a couple more questions. I was just curious to hear a bit more about her trip, so I asked her how long she had been in Indonesia. Was she flying back to China right now, or is her trip going to continue? And has she been to any other countries on this trip? Yeah, I'm very interested in her story, how that would work out. So, yeah, that was mainly yesterday, a lot of technology stuff. And of course, I went out for something to eat. I'm having a little bit of a trouble there because I even delayed as long as I could. I'm only having one meal a day generally right now. So I go out in the afternoon and I have one meal. And then this time I wanted to wait until all the restaurants were open. So I think I waited until 3:30 or 4 o'clock. And I thought, okay, I can go to a restaurant that I wanted to check out. And so I waited until like 4 o'clock and it was still closed. And like the whole food street still seemed to be largely empty. So I ended up going back to the very same Hainan Ayam Nasi restaurant that I've been going to a lot, just because the meal there is very filling, very elaborate. It's a little bit expensive for a meal here in Indonesia, but it is a good meal. They serve me really well. They give me multiple bowls of soup, very hearty, thick vegetable soup, and I get multiple bowls of that, and quite an elaborate meal. So, and as they have really comfortable seating, and now I know the people, they know me, I know the system. So if I'm just looking for an easy meal, no food adventures, I'll just go back there, and that's what I did yesterday. And that was my one meal of the day. And then when I came back to the hotel, I grabbed a little one-person tub of ice cream out of the freezer in the lobby, and that was my dessert. And other than instant coffee throughout, that was my food adventures for yesterday. And maybe in terms of Planet Doug, I did a bunch of other things yesterday that I'll talk about in a minute when I talk about Patreon. But I also posted a real Planet Doug video. It was a bit of an unusual one. What's it called again? I'm going to call it up on YouTube Studio here. I called it Detour Back to Malaysia en route to Jakarta. And there's a Planet Doug title for you. Yesterday I was talking about how with my haircut video, a lot of people were making fun of me or criticizing me for stooping to clickbait, where I said something about, in the title, I think I called it, "He Cracked My Neck," because when I got my haircut, the barber ended the haircut with a massage and then a little chiropractic routine where out of the blue he just cracked my neck, and it came as a bit of a surprise. And then again, I think people in general, if you're talking about the average population, they're not very detail oriented, and they don't really look at specifics. So like the exact meaning of clickbait, they were saying that title was clickbait, when of course it is not clickbait, because clickbait is a lie. A clickbait headline tells you something that didn't happen, tricks you into clicking on the video with something that's fake and false. But in this case, I don't know, I got a haircut and then the guy cracked my neck, and that's exactly what happened in the video, and that's what the video was called. And so there's no clickbait at all. What it is a dramatic, perhaps sensationalized title. I fully admit that. Yeah, I would just call that I got a haircut in Tanjung Balai. I mean, that would be the normal, boring Planet Doug title for a video, right? I got a haircut. That would be me. That's my idea of making an exciting video. So in this case, I was so interested in the cracking of the neck, as I said. I found it interesting, and I made it part of the Crunch Club question, and it was the talking point of the video. So I just called the video, "He Cracked My Neck." And I didn't have to say haircut, because in the thumbnail, you see a photograph of me getting a haircut. So everything was absolutely clear. So I didn't even put haircut in the video title. But anyway, with this latest video, I'm back to regular Planet Doug ways. Detour back to Malaysia en route to Jakarta. and then on the thumbnail it says surprise detour. You know, and yeah, it's a very difficult video to make a title for because it's so complicated. Like, what is going on? I just arrived in Sumatra. Now I'm going back to Malaysia, and after Malaysia, I'm going to Jakarta. It's like there's so many things going on. There's so many wheels turning in this video, and the video itself is just a series of vignettes. It's not a real story because I wasn't even going to record a video. When I set off that morning to go to the ferry terminal to take the boat back to Malaysia, I didn't even get my camera gear ready. I was just going to not make any videos at all. I was going to record for Patreon, but I wasn't going to make any Planet Doug videos at all. So I was just going to spend 5 days in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur and Port Dickson. Then I was going to fly to Jakarta, get the laptop, meet up with my mystery benefactor. Then I was going to fly to Medan, take the train to back to Tanjung Balai, and then I was going to start recording videos again once I'm back in Tanjung Balai. And then I would announce what I had just done, but I wasn't going to shoot any videos. But then as I was on the Baychak going to the ferry terminal, the world around me just looked so interesting. 5:30 in the morning, rumbling along the busy, sometimes empty, sometimes busy streets of Tanjung Balai going to the ferry terminal. It seemed like a very exciting moment, very interesting visually at least. So I thought, well, I might as well just record a bit of video. And then I didn't have any camera gear ready, so I just got out my smartphone and I just started recording on my smartphone. And then I just kept up the habit. Every time I was doing something interesting, or at least interesting in my life, having some noodles for breakfast, having some kebab for dinner, any little thing that happened, I would just take out my phone, meeting up with Daryl for breakfast, and then, oh, yeah, I mean, this restaurant looks interesting. We had breakfast at a place called Bricks and Bread, and the architecture of the interior was quite interesting. So I thought, oh, yeah, I shouldn't waste this moment being a professional YouTuber and all. So I just got out my phone and recorded a couple of minutes. And I did that throughout the entire time in Kuala Lumpur. And then I didn't do it anymore after that. So there's no more smartphone vignettes from my flight to Jakarta or being in Jakarta. I didn't really record any of that for some reason. And then, yeah, that story I guess I will tell in retrospect. Of course, I'm telling all these stories in these podcasts, mainly because it's just so much easier to do. It doesn't take nearly as much time. But yeah, so I posted that video, and there's 18 comments. And just for fun, perhaps I haven't looked at the comments yet, and maybe I'll just go through them very quickly and reply to some of them here on the podcast. First one is a CC, which if you're not aware of that CC stands for Crunch Club, something I invented, and the Crunch Club are all the people who watch the video all the way to the end, or at least they skip to the end. Either way, you're my favorite people, and they are all members of the Crunch Club. And I say at the end of the video that, hey, if you are in the Crunch Club, put CC in the comments to let me know. And I love seeing CC in the comments. So that was from Ronald Vineert. I don't know how to pronounce that name. Next comment, is there any new video coming up on 5 Snacks Challenge? I actually like those challenges. Yeah, I get that comment quite a bit if I haven't done a 5 Snacks Challenge for a while. And then I end up doing it after enough people remind me. But it is a very good reminder for me because I often neglect the true nature of YouTube, my instinct is simply to tell the story of my life in a long form, basically how I do it in this Patreon podcast. That's my instinct, and that is never going to really capture an audience on YouTube, I don't think, because YouTube has gotten much more professionalized. If you want people to watch your videos on YouTube, well, you are now competing with major networks, like full-on corporations are all producing videos for YouTube. And every single celebrity has a YouTube channel now. For example, even professional athletes, people who are already famous because they are a superstar in a world popular sport, they have YouTube channels. They have weekly podcasts. Famous singers have podcasts. Have YouTube channels. And how in the world can anybody compete with them? You have full-on, professionally produced, packaged videos jammed into YouTube now. It's no longer a small, local social media sort of platform. So in a way, if you're an individual like me, you should try to package things to make them a little bit more digestible. So instead of making a video, I just go out and have something to eat. The video could be 5-snack challenge. If you see what I mean, I'm still all I am. Like say I'm in Tanjung Balai, I go out to a night market for the experience, and you can just make a video about I go to the local night market, and you can have lots of different foods at the night market, and you can post that as a video, which is fine. That's my instinct. But you can also make that same video, but then you can give it a little bit of gift wrapping, give it a context, give it a structure. Then you call it 5-snack challenge, and then it becomes a thing, and then people will gravitate towards that thing. So it's something I should do more of. Next comment. AmBank equals Arab Malaysia Bank. And that's in reference to, in this video, there was one little vignette where I walked by a bank building in Kuala Lumpur. And I've taken video of it in the past. I've actually talked about it a few times. It always jumps out at me for some reason because of the camel on the side of the building. There's like a cartoon camel, and it's all made of glass, reflective material, and you can see a reflection of the KL Tower. And anyway, I was talking about it, and I referred to it as the AmBank, and this commenter is telling me that AmBank stands for Arab Malaysia Bank. And I didn't remember that, but I knew that. I looked it up before, but I had forgotten about it. The same commenter says, lots of rubbish at the immigration jetty. Yeah, I think he's right. I remember seeing it, but I didn't remark on it at the time. But right around the jetty in Port Dickson, where the Indomal fast ferry, it docks there. This is the ferry. There's an Indomal fast ferry company, comes from Tanjung Balai to Port Dickson, and it comes from Dumai to Port Dickson. But right along the shore there, I think there is quite a bit of rubbish that has blown up against the shore. Yeah, I think for the rest of Port Dickson, you don't see that. I don't remember seeing a lot of rubbish. Maybe there's something unique about the way that piece of land sticks out, and it manages to catch a lot of the rubbish coming in from the ocean or wherever. Wander Eats, of course, a comment from Wander Eats. He says, was great to hang out for breakfast, buddy, although a tad over-flavored, LOL. Also seems you're enjoying filming with your phone with short bursts of scenes. Love them. Yeah, there's a lot going on there in that comment. I meet up with Daryl all the time for breakfast when I'm back in Kuala Lumpur. I always enjoy that. And this time we went to that fancy restaurant called Bricks and Bread, and neither of us had been there before. I think we had both noticed it before, but we normally go to Yut Key, which is sort of across the alley from Bricks and Bread. And Yut Key is like a casual, traditional Malaysian kopitiam. And you can get a very filling breakfast and drink and dessert there for something like 20 ringgit, which is a pretty good deal. If you just have breakfast, it's like, I don't know, 10 to 15 ringgit, something like that. And then Bricks and Bread is more of a fancy place. And I think the big breakfast I had was 35 ringgit. And then the coffee was 14, so it ends up costing 50 ringgit there. And then you do wonder, okay, for someone like me, of course, that's an event. I only do that on special occasions. And meeting up with Daryl after probably, I hadn't seen Daryl in person for months, actually, maybe 2 months, almost 3 months. So yeah, it was a big occasion. So we met at a nice place, had a good breakfast, and it was a good meal. And Daryl had shashuka. I just like saying shashuka, some sort of a lamb stew, I think, a Middle Eastern dish. And he had been to Dubai, and I guess he knew that dish from his visits to Dubai. And I just had a typical Western big breakfast. And I did notice at the time that it was good, but it was salty, I think. Everything was like heavily salted. Too much, way too much salt for me. I think that was the breakfast. And then maybe his shashuka, maybe it was also salty or something. So he's saying a tad overflavored. And Daryl is commenting on how this whole video, almost the entire video, I think, was shot on my smartphone. And little bursts. And yeah, I've been enjoying doing that a little bit more. I think in my normal YouTube life, I really went head first into setting up like a Rode Wireless Go attached to a GoPro that's inside a media mod that's on this grip, which has another grip mounted on it, which has a quick release. And anyway, it was all. And then when I was in Port Dickson, I was thinking about probably going to go on a bike tour in Sumatra, and then maybe even a bike tour back in Malaysia. So I worked really hard on figuring out good ways to mount the GoPros on my bicycle, and then the 360 camera, then this, then that. And I think my brain broke because I've made it all so complicated that there you are in the middle of whatever your life is, whatever it is I'm doing, whether in Port Dickson or Tanjung Balai, and I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to go out and get some lunch. Oh, should I record it on video? And then I was sort of rebelling against shooting video because I was like, I can't face it. I'm just so tired of putting together camera rigs. So I'd see all of my camera gear, and it's like, okay, now I got to attach this to this, put this on this, plug this in, start it up, make sure I've got memory cards with me, make sure I've got extra batteries with me. Oh, I might want to switch to this grip, so, I better bring that adapter. And I start putting things in my knapsack. And Daryl will make fun of me for that, because by the time I walk out the door, I'll suddenly have 15 pounds of camera gear in my knapsack just in case I decide I want to use it. And then I guess it all kind of got to me, and I just couldn't face it anymore. It's just like, this is too much. So then I was going out without my GoPro, and then I just started pulling out my smartphone. And it all started because I've got this new Ulanzi hand grip. And with the Ulanzi hand grip, my phone has the physical form of a camera. And that makes all the difference in the world. So now I have it in my pocket all the time. So I just started shooting little vignettes. I'm not recording my entire day. I had no intention of recording anything. I just go out, live my life. And then I thought, oh, hey, why don't I take a quick video clip of this meal? Oh, here I am in the bathroom. I can see myself in the mirror. Let's film myself in the bathroom and say hello. So I just started whipping out my phone and going click, 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 taking little video vignettes here and there. But I did run into trouble. As you may have, if you watch this video, you've probably noticed that the audio level would go nice and clear and then drop down to nothing. And that was happening because when I was holding the phone filming myself, the microphone was covered up, so it couldn't record my voice anymore. But then when I turned the phone around to film away from me, now the microphone was uncovered, and then I got clear audio. So even though I was using my phone and I was having some success using it, audio was a problem. So that's why when I was in Kuala Lumpur, I got very excited for a hot minute about the new DJI Mic Mini, because I thought I could connect it to my smartphone via Bluetooth. And then, wow, a little button microphone connected Bluetooth, and now I don't have to worry about anything. But then it turns out that the Bluetooth probably doesn't work with my Samsung phone anyway, so that was kind of a dead end. And then that's why I eventually figured out how to mount a cold shoe mount on my phone. So now I can mount a Rode Wireless Go microphone on my phone, and I'll just leave it there permanently. So now I will have good audio. So I'm sort of combining the best of both worlds, good audio with the convenience of a smartphone. So I think Daryl would be very pleased to hear that, because he's a strong proponent of keeping it simple and lightweight. So if he can find any way to make what he's using lighter, smaller, less complicated, with nothing to plug in, that's what he wants to do. So that's yeah, he would approve of me becoming a smartphone YouTuber more often. But yeah, anyway, that's that story. Next comment, someone said, new glasses and haircut. Yes, I did get a haircut. And I think I got that haircut, the one with the shoulder massage and the neck cracking. And that was, of course, the previous video. And new glasses, yeah, I guess they're new glasses. Technically, they aren't new because I had them with me. It was just that I broke my other ones. Like I buy these really cheap reading glasses from 7-Eleven, from train stations, from wherever you can see those old, like those displays. They always have a picture of an old man on them who's sort of peering over his glasses at his grandchildren because he needs reading glasses now. And then these reading glasses cost like $1 or $2. And so anyway, I buy a bunch of those all the time. And I have a whole stock of them because I keep breaking them. And then whenever I break them, I just reach into my bag and I get out a new pair because I'm already carrying around backups. So that's what keeps happening with those reading glasses. Now here is an interesting comment. Why is it more convenient to detour to KL instead of straight to Sumatra straight from Sumatra to Jakarta? And of course, I talked about that at length in these Patreon videos and Patreon podcasts, but I didn't talk about it on Planet Doug. But the short answer is it's more convenient because I was in Tanjung Balai, and the ferry leaves from Tanjung Balai, so I don't have to go anywhere. If I went straight from Sumatra to Jakarta, then I have to travel all the way to Medan, spend the night in Medan, then go to the airport, and then fly to Jakarta, fly back from Jakarta to Medan, and then take the train back to Tanjung Balai. So in order for me to go to Jakarta, then the easiest thing for me to do from Tanjung Balai was just hop on the boat. I don't have to travel anywhere. The boat was right there. So that was reason number one. Reason number two was my tourist visa. So my 30-day visa on arrival for Indonesia was going to expire. So if I flew from Sumatra to Jakarta and then back again, my visa was going to expire right in the middle of all of that. So I would end up using up like a week of my visa, like I'd have to extend it for another 30 days. Then I would use up 1 week of it going to Jakarta and back, probably use up another week of it just doing technical stuff and getting the laptop up and running. So now 2 weeks of my visa is gone, and now my visa, my second extension expires, and I have to leave the country again. So by going to Malaysia instead, then when I fly into Indonesia, I get a brand new visa cycle. So I'm landing in Jakarta with a brand new, fresh 30-day visa on arrival that can be extended for another 30 days. So I don't know if that makes any sense. Basically, if I stayed and I flew from Sumatra to Jakarta, I just run into visa problems. My visa would end up expiring. I got an extension. My extension would expire. Then I would have to fly to Malaysia anyway, come back in again. So it would be far more complicated, far more expensive. So the easiest, cheapest, most convenient thing for me to do was take the boat to Malaysia and then fly from there to Jakarta. Reason number three is that while I was in Port Dickson, a Planet Doug subscriber gave me an old laptop that I just said, here, I have an old one that I'm not using anymore. You can have it. But it turned out that that laptop couldn't edit video. So I was using it, but I couldn't edit video on it. So it wasn't that useful to me. And then now I was going to Jakarta to get a brand new laptop. And if I stayed in Sumatra, I would end up with 2 laptops. Now I'm carrying around 2 laptops because I would want to take the other one, the Vivo book, and I wanted to give it back to this guy. He gave it to me, said, here, you can have it, but I only used it for 1 month. So now that I don't need it anymore, the polite thing to do is to return it to him. So now I would have to keep it until I go back to Malaysia. So now I'd be traveling all over Sumatra carrying 2 laptops, and that's way, way too heavy. So by going back to Malaysia, I can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. I save money, I get a better visa, and I can return the laptop. So that's what I did. I brought the Vivo book back to Malaysia so I don't have to carry it around anymore. And then when I got to Jakarta, I got the new laptop. So now I'm carrying around only 1 laptop. So that is why it was more convenient for me. Very, very complicated, but it was a lot more convenient for me to go to Malaysia first to get to Jakarta. Next comment from C.S. Chua. Sorry about I really shouldn't even try to pronounce the names. It's just not going to end well. But yeah, I know him very well. He is a long-time follower of the Planet Doug channel, which I appreciate very much, and a member of the Crunch Club, CC. And he writes, that is a full English breakfast. For your noodles, you could just tell them no intestines or no innards, just pork slices and minced pork. You didn't mention where you left your bicycle. Yeah, good point. I was talking, he's referring to this noodle dish that I had when I was in Kuala Lumpur. And then when I went to order, I was looking at all the options or all these photos, and there was something in one of the photos I was curious about, and a man there who was helping me, he said, oh, those are intestines. And I was like, I know intestines are very chewy, and they're not, I'm not a huge fan of them. I have them, I eat them, no problem, but not for breakfast. So I was looking at the display, but in every picture, there seemed to be intestines. So I was trying to find out, okay, which is one of these, does it not have intestines in it? Like, but then the reason I didn't do that, I didn't ask, was because the person who made the noodles didn't speak any English. So I wasn't able to communicate to the noodle maker. But then the man from the wonton mee stall, he came over and he helped me. And I asked him, okay, could you tell them? Anyway, I couldn't understand the different dishes there. It wasn't that clear to me which dish was which and what to call which dish. So I was a little bit confused. And then, but this man helped me out, and he did tell the noodle maker, oh, this foreigner, he wants your basic bowl of pork noodles, but no innards, no intestines. So that was communicated to the noodle maker, but I didn't communicate that. Someone else helped me, and that's how I finally got it. Here's a name that I can pronounce because it's like a YouTube secret name. This comment is from Excel5203, and he writes, I thought Canadians loved the cold, yet here you're complaining. Maybe Douglas has been tropicalized finally after living in the area long enough. Yeah, it is true. As a Canadian, I love the cold. When I went to Dalat in Vietnam, I was so happy. I spent an entire month in Dalat, and mainly because I had other things to do, but also because I just loved the climate up there, up in the mountains, nice and cool. That was such a relief for me, and I love the cold, absolutely. But of course, when you're talking about a train or a bus or a ferry, like an enclosed space where they run the air conditioner nonstop, that's a whole other situation. I mean, that is, it's essentially like sitting inside a freezer, and when you're just wearing a t-shirt and you're sitting inside a freezer, well, okay, that's cold. That's a whole different level of freezing cold. And my seat there, the seat that I happened to choose in the ferry, it happened to be right in the air blast. It was one of these giant air conditioners up in the ceiling, like a full-on central air conditioning system that blew the air in a powerful wind, and it blew directly on my head where I was sitting, and it basically froze my head to the point where I got a terrible headache. It was so ice cold. I mean, it's just brutally uncomfortable. So, I mean, there's levels to everything. Yes, Canadians like cold, but even me, when I go back to Canada and it's winter time, well, I put on a winter coat, a winter hat, gloves, and winter boots. It's not like I go outside in bare feet and lie down in the snow. You know, once once the temperature drops below freezing, it's cold even for Canadians, and we have to dress accordingly. But there I was inside the ferry, and it was essentially winter temperatures inside the ferry, but I was dressed for summer in a t-shirt. So yeah, it's way too cold. So yeah, it's kind of funny. Yeah, and there's KY, my friend KY. KY, he picked me up at the dock in the ferry in Port Dickson, and then drove me to Kuala Lumpur. A long-standing member of the Crunch Club, so he writes CC and really enjoyed the video. Thank you, KY. And the next comment says, new sunglasses. I don't know what that means because I do have sunglasses. I have a really nice pair of sunglasses. I have two pairs, actually, but I never wear them. And the reason I don't wear them, well, two reasons. It feels impolite because, like, Indonesian people, Malaysians, it's weird. I always find it really weird. When I was in the Philippines, all these tropical countries, where the sun is really powerful, people don't wear sunglasses, which has always struck me as odd. It seems like it would be natural, but most people, the vast majority, don't wear sunglasses. I guess they just grow up there and they're accustomed to it. So if I put on sunglasses, I feel like it's a barrier between me and the local people. I feel like I don't know, it's just rude, it seems like, when you're talking to someone who's wearing sunglasses. And then when I talk to people, I feel like I have to take my sunglasses off because they can't see my eyes, that sort of thing. And I don't know, somehow I associate sunglasses with people who think they're really, really cool. It's like, oh, look at you in your sunglasses. You think you're so cool. Like, are you Brad Pitt? Like, do you think you're a movie star? It's almost like putting on sunglasses is a symbol or a signal that you are separate from where you are. That, okay, it makes you a tourist. It makes you a foreigner. It makes you look like someone who's too cool to talk to people. And you think you're better than us. You think you're a movie star. Anyway, I have all these negative associations with sunglasses, so I generally don't wear them when I'm just out walking around. And I'm normally wearing reading glasses that are around my neck on a cord. And I'm wearing a microphone that is around my neck on a cord. And I have a little key for all my padlocks that I wear on a cord around my neck. So I have so many things around my neck that if I wear sunglasses, it just gets in the way. All the cords get tangled up. I keep having to change them. Like, I removed the sunglasses, put on my reading glasses. And if I happen to be like riding my bicycle, I might wear sunglasses because, yeah, it feels more natural. Then you're doing something sporty, riding a bicycle, then it seems okay to wear sunglasses. But then I start sweating so badly that my sweat drips from my forehead onto the sunglasses, and then I can't see out of them anymore. And then all day long, I'm cleaning the sunglasses. They're getting dirty. They're getting covered in sweat. And then they get tangled up. I get on and off the bike, and then the cord of my sunglasses gets caught on the handlebars, and it ends up being a big mess. So even on the bicycle, I often don't wear sunglasses. I end up carrying them around all the time. I have them in my luggage. And a Planet Doug subscriber gave me a pair of really nice, 2 pairs of really nice sunglasses. And I feel bad that I don't actually wear them that often. But as I said, they always just get in the way, so I don't. But anyway, this commenter says, new sunglasses. But of course, he probably meant just new glasses, new reading glasses. And I guess I was wearing new ones because I broke my older ones. Next comment, KY is Muslim. That is a Muslim cemetery. Yes, KY is Muslim. And in the video, there's one little vignette where before we left Port Dixon, we were in KY's car, he was driving, and as we were leaving town, he stopped by a Muslim cemetery to visit the gravesite of his father. And it is a Muslim cemetery, and KY is from a Muslim family. And there's Seacology, CK from the famous Seacology YouTube channel, and he writes, "Welcome back to Malaysia, awaiting for your story." Though, of course, there isn't going to be a big story from Malaysia because I was only there for a few days, and I was really, really busy while I was there. And then I flew back to Indonesia, flew to Jakarta right away. And here's a comment from Ken BB7733, looking forward to Jakarta and CC. Unfortunately, I didn't really go to Jakarta. All I did was go to the airport hotel, and then I left. I had no plans to go to Jakarta at all. And And then the next comment, it's the raining seasons in Sumatra, Java. It's it's always the rainy season, so I sort of give up worrying about that. I just go anywhere. It always ends up being the rainy season. And the rainy season is not always a terrible time to go places. You think you always want to go when the weather is the best and it's not raining, but the rainy season doesn't mean it's raining all the time. It just means it does rain, and it rains really heavily. But that can also be a good thing because it clears out the sky so that when the rain stops, the sky is really clear and really nice. And of course, the fields are full of rice, and it's really, really beautiful. So you get a lot of greenery. In the dry season, the land can look very brown and very empty and very desolate, and not a lot of activity because they're not farming. And then the rainy season, you see a lot of activity in the fields. So assuming I go back to Tanjung Balai, assuming I get my bicycle, assuming I bike tour, it should be difficult because of the rain, but there should also be advantages to that as well. Next comment, second last. At first, I thought it was a Big Ben's bus. And when I first saw that comment, I was confused. I was like, I was never on a bus. But they're probably referring to the ferry, that they thought I was actually on a bus and not on the ferry. But yeah, it looks like a bus. It looks like a jet. Yeah, like that. And then the very first comment, first look. Oh no. Okay, now I just got it. Because the Baychak had a Mercedes-Benz logo on it. That's right. I took a Baychak in the dark going from my hotel to the ferry terminal. I remember now. And the front of it had a Mercedes-Benz symbol, or something that looks like a Mercedes-Benz symbol. That's probably what they're referring to. Okay. And yeah, so they thought my Baychak was a Mercedes-Benz bus at first. And then the first comment, first look, wow, Doug on Mercedes taxi. And to be honest, I didn't understand that comment at all until just now. It's like, okay. They're making a joke about Mercedes taxi. My Baychak looks like a Mercedes. Yeah. I'm going to make a cup of coffee right now and then move on to another topic. But one little aside here about English. I talk about this all the time, and this is a good example of what I'm talking about, how English doesn't have certain pronouns that we need. Like for third person, to talk about another person, we have he to refer to men, she to refer to women, but we don't have a pronoun where the gender is unclear or the gender is unknown. And I always talk about how English needs one of those pronouns. We need to invent one. And I'm not talking because of woke culture, people who don't identify as men or don't identify as women. Nothing to do with that, though they could also use this pronoun. And it surprises me that the woke society hasn't invented that pronoun, because woke culture, what they've done is they claimed the plural third person pronoun. They say use they, them, which makes no sense at all because they, them is plural, not singular. So what English needs is a singular third person pronoun where the gender is unknown. And when I'm talking about these comments, it's a perfect example when you would use that pronoun, because this comment is from someone called Rush Network 782. But I don't know, is Rush Network a man or a woman, right? So I would be talking about this comment and I say, oh, here's a comment from Rush Network. They say, they write, Do you see what I mean? I have to say they, because I don't know, is Rush Network a man or a woman? I can't say, oh, here's a comment from Rush Network. He writes, and I can't say she writes because I don't know. Is it a man or a woman? I don't know. So English needs a third pronoun, he, she, and then one more. We do have the pronoun one, which is indeterminate, like male, female. One includes both. So technically, you could say Rush Network. Oh, here's a comment from Rush Network. One says da 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 da, but it doesn't work because that's not how we use that pronoun. One is for referring to everybody, like the general population as a whole. Like this is a habit that people, we say, one does this. This is what people do. So one is actually more of a plural sort of pronoun. It's a very special pronoun. So we don't have it in English. We need one. So we need somebody to invent that. But I ran into that all through these comments where I would say somebody, I refer to them and I don't know, like Excel. Here's a comment from Excel 5203. They say, they write, because that's my only option in English. And it's incorrect because they is plural. And we need a new pronoun in English that is singular, that can refer to both men and women when it's unknown whether the speaker was male or female. So anyway, one of my pet peeves about the English language, I love English, but because as an English teacher and an English editor, I notice problems in the language. And English has a big problem with pronouns. We need more pronouns because, we don't have enough of them. And a lot of languages, they have these pronouns that English doesn't have. And, we need more of them. So I'm going to stop for a minute and make another cup of coffee. After a brief intermission, I am back with my second cup of coffee. So you'll have to forgive me if you hear some slurping from time to time, but I need this both too. Just start the new day and to soothe my throat a little bit. As always, I started talking at the beginning of this podcast, and I didn't think I had very much to say, but I think it's been like an hour or something like that, and my throat is already worn out, and I'm still babbling away. Apparently, I have a lot to say, no matter how tiny the topic is, I can babble on. So I'm moving on to the topic of Patreon, which continues to dominate a lot of my thoughts. By this point, you would think that the Patreon would be live. I would have launched it. It would be public and it would be out there. But the more I work on it, the more I realize that, the more I learn about it and come to understand how I want to use it. So I keep going back and making changes. And so, for example, the biggest idea that I've had recently is that I should adopt more of an early access model, because I started off with this idea of incorporating a lot of behind-the-scenes videos, such as this behind-the-scenes podcast, and bonus videos. These sorts of things were going to be part of the Patreon. However, it occurred to me that, what if nobody joins the Patreon? What if very few people join it? And what if a lot of people don't even know about it? Suddenly, I am busy making a lot of special podcasts, videos, behind-the-scenes videos, bonus videos, time lapses, all kinds of extra content, and it's all in Patreon. And all of that work is kind of going to waste because nobody knows it's there and nobody gets to watch it. So I was thinking about that in particular for higher tiers. So for example, so far I've created 4 tiers, as you may be aware if you've heard me talk about this before. The forest planet, city planet, ocean planet, and mountain planet. Mountain being the highest, ocean being the second highest, and then forest and city, those were the two main tiers that most people would join. But I did want to create a tier like Ocean Planet, which would cost $10 a month or even $20 a month for people that really want to keep Planet Doug alive. And then I thought, well, how can I make those tiers worth it, make it attractive for people? Well, then I was thinking, okay, the bonus videos would be part of the Ocean Planet tier. But then I was thinking, well, what if only 5 people join the Ocean Planet tier? I'd probably be lucky to get 5 people. And then suddenly all of these videos are being created that nobody has access to. And maybe out of those 5 people, they don't even care. They're joining the Ocean Planet because they want to support me and what I'm doing, and they don't really need bonus videos in return. They may not even watch those bonus videos. So suddenly I've got all these videos on YouTube with 1 view, 2 views, 3 views. It was starting to feel a little bit weird, so I thought, okay, maybe I should start off with the idea of early access. And early access didn't feel special enough, but maybe it's the best compromise. So that's what I've been thinking about now, and turning like a bonus video as a perk is no longer a perk. It will be early access to the bonus video, and then eventually it will become public. So that's one change I'm considering, and I'm thinking I'm going to do it. The other change I'm considering is actually taking all of the Patreon videos and putting them on other YouTube channels, because on Patreon, you have a link to those videos. So you can watch them on Patreon, but it doesn't matter where they are. Like, you're on Patreon, you click on it, you can watch it. You can say, oh, I want to watch it on YouTube. It plays on YouTube. It's always playing on YouTube. But it doesn't matter to the viewer where it is, so it doesn't have to be on Planet Doug. So particularly for these podcasts, I made the decision, okay, it's getting too cluttered on Planet Doug. I have way too many videos there. So I thought, okay, let's take these behind-the-scenes Planet Doug podcast videos and let's put them on the Planet Doug behind-the-scenes channel. And that made a lot more sense. It's like, okay, that's logical. So then I had to delete all of the videos from Planet Doug and re-upload all of them to the behind-the-scenes channel. So now every time I record one of these podcasts, I upload the video to Planet Doug behind the scenes, and then I put the link from Patreon to that channel rather than to Planet Doug. And then yesterday I had this idea. I was basically making one of these podcasts. So I was thinking about the technology involved, and the technology now is me speaking into a Rode Wireless Go microphone as a standalone receiver, and then I'm copying it from the receiver, the transmitter, from the transmitter directly to a smartphone with a USB-C cable. And I thought, that's kind of interesting. That's something new that I learned about technology. And normally, when I discover something like this, I normally go to like WhatsApp and I chat with other YouTubers. Like, I'll chat with Daryl and say, hey, do you know what I just learned? With the Rode Wireless Go, I can copy audio files directly from the transmitter to a smartphone. I don't have to use the Rode app. I don't have to use a laptop. And isn't it amazing? And I would babble to Daryl about this thing I discovered. And of course, Daryl, he would take my message and put a heart on it. Oh, that's amazing. But of course, it doesn't really matter that much to Daryl because he doesn't use Rode Wireless Go microphones anyway. He uses DJI Mic 2s. So basically, I'm writing this long message about technology, and sending it to one person who probably doesn't really care that much anyway. So I thought, well, why don't I shoot a quick video? Which is what I did yesterday. I got out my GoPro and then I shot a video talking about this, and I demonstrated it, and I recorded the screen of my phone at the same time, and I essentially made a technology tutorial video about how to use a Rode Wireless Go as a standalone recorder and then copy the files to a smartphone. So I made this short video, and then I was going to upload it to Planet Doug and put it on Patreon. And then I remembered, I have a technology channel. I haven't done anything with it for probably years, but it's still there. I called it Planet Doug's Learning Curve. And that could be a terrible name, but at the time it made sense to me because I wanted to make videos about technology as I learn about it. So I buy a new camera, I learn how to use it, so I'm on my own learning curve, and I would make videos about learning about new technology. So I called it Planet Doug's Learning Curve, the LC. So what I did yesterday, I shot this video about the Rode Wireless Go, how to use it as a standalone recorder, and then when I finished that video, I uploaded it to the Learning Curve, and then I copied it to Patreon. So then I could make a new collection on Patreon, a new type of video. And what I'm going to do is the Patreon perk is early access to that video, and then that video will eventually become public on the Learning Curve. So, yeah, I like it. I like the idea. But this whole idea hinges on the idea that people who join the Planet Doug Patreon, they don't mind that it's early access, right? So this video wasn't made specially for them. It was made for the Learning Curve channel, and it was made for the wide public. But as a member of Planet Doug Patreon, you get access to it first. So that is your perk, like maybe 1 week before anybody else gets to see it. And I guess that's okay. I think that's okay. I think that fits in with the ethos of the Patreon platform, the way it works with YouTube. I think that's a good idea. And I'm enjoying the whole Patreon experience. And that's a good example of why I enjoy it, because I had this thought, this random thought, it's really cool that I can use the Rode Wireless Go like this. And when I have that random thought, I want to share it with somebody. I want to talk to somebody about it. I want to share the experience, share the knowledge. And before Patreon, before YouTube, my only option was to just babble at people on Facebook Messenger or on WhatsApp or something like that. But now when I have this idea, I can put it on Patreon. It's like an outlet for thoughts, an outlet for creativity, for new ideas. And there's a new example of that right now. I was just making this cup of coffee. Time out for a slurp. And then on YouTube, I stumbled across a trailer for an upcoming boxing match. I'm not a big boxing fan, but I follow mixed martial arts, and boxing is kind of connected to mixed martial arts. It's a combat sport. So occasionally I follow the big matches. And there's an upcoming fight in Saudi Arabia between Tyson Fury and Usyk. And even I know who those guys are. Like I said, I'm not a boxing fan. I don't follow the sport. But those are big, big names in the boxing world, and I'm interested in the fight. So it showed up on YouTube that they made a fake movie trailer for Tyson Fury versus Usyk. Or Usyk? I don't know if it's Usyk or Usyk. I think it's Usyk. Anyway. But the trailer is amazing. It's so much fun. And I was so excited to watch it. They sort of did, like they did an actual movie trailer, like a full-on as if the fight is a Hollywood blockbuster. And they drew from so many different movie styles, everything from like a horror genre, or Being John Malkovich, or even what's that Arnold Schwarzenegger movie where he goes to Mars and they have, what do they call those things? Oh, I should have looked this up before I started talking about it. Quatos, like a face, another head coming out of your stomach that they call a quato. And the idea is that in this trailer, Tyson Fury and Usyk, as they go about their life, they see their opponent everywhere around them. So they're talking to a bus driver, and now the bus driver suddenly has Tyson Fury's face. So every single person they look at has the face of their opponent imprinted on them, and they think they're losing their mind. They're so focused on their opponent. Oh, I'm going to be fighting Usyk. I'm going to be fighting Tyson Fury. And they're so focused on their opponent that they're seeing them everywhere. Everywhere they look, they see the face of their opponent. And it gets so bad that it's like they're losing their mind. And they go see a psychiatrist and they get therapy. And then their therapy looks like their opponent. And they start punching all these random people. And anyway, it is absolutely brilliant. It's one of the best things I've seen for a very, very long time. So entertaining, so well done. So now that I've seen that, I want to talk about it. And here I am talking about it on my podcast, but I'm also going to, on Patreon, I'll just make a little note, like I will link to that trailer on YouTube, and then I'll just share it and say, oh, check out this amazing trailer for the new fight between Tyson Fury and Usyk. So Patreon gives me an outlet for these sorts of things. Like I could get on WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger and I could send Daryl a message and say, oh, look at this, Daryl. I found this amazing trailer about the big fight between Tyson Fury and Usyk. And Daryl will say, who's Tyson Fury? Like, what are you talking about? You know, maybe he doesn't follow boxing. Or I'll send it to somebody else that I know and they'll hate boxing. And they'll say, oh, that's stupid. Who would ever watch boxing, right? So, I mean, I've got nobody that I can share these random thoughts with. But, of course, I have Patreon. And if I have one of these random thoughts, I can throw it up on Patreon. And I can share it with the Planet Doug community. 90% of people who might follow Planet Doug videos, they won't care about it, but it doesn't matter. Other people will see it and go, oh, yeah, look at that. Yeah, that's cool. Anyway, it gives me an outlet. And also on Patreon, there is this idea that, it gives me an outlet for regular Planet Doug stuff because of this whole detour, like my detour to Malaysia and Jakarta, there's sort of a Planet Doug hiatus. I'm not making normal Planet Doug videos right now because my trip has been interrupted. But while I was in Tanjung Balai, I was buying a ferry ticket, getting ready for the trip to Jakarta, and I just threw my GoPro on my bicycle, for example, and I thought, I'll just shoot a time lapse as I ride around Tanjung Balai, and I do that for fun all the time. I love time lapses, and I don't shoot them for Planet Doug because it's not a very big deal, and I've learned over time. Nobody likes time lapses. Everybody criticizes them. So I've talked about this before, that in my mind, on Planet Doug, I can make full-sized, narrated, edited Planet Doug videos, okay? 1 or 2 of them is coming out every week. That's fine. But then, in between those videos, I can just toss up bonus videos, like a little time lapse, for example, and I shoot a time lapse, and I think, well, I have the time lapse. Oh, I have a 360 video. Oh, I have a POV walking video. I have it sitting here on my laptop, on my phone, doing nothing. Well, why don't I just put it on Planet Doug? a fun little bonus video for anybody that might enjoy it. But every time I do that, I get comments saying, ugh, I hate time lapses. I don't like these videos. You should post edited videos, like full videos. We don't like these. And people get confused by them. If people either they don't like them, or if they don't mind them, I get comments that they confuse people. Oh, I thought this was a Planet Doug video, but it's just a 2-minute time lapse. Huh, okay, that's all right. So anyway, I get a lot of feedback that it's not a good idea to do this. And yet, I'm still shooting time lapses all the time. I enjoy them. I think they're fun. And they're so easy to do. So I wake up in the morning and I know I'm going to ride my bike for 10 kilometers around the city. I don't have the time to make a full video because it's going to take me 2 days to edit a full video. So I'm not going to do that. And I thought, oh, I'll just shoot a time lapse. And I do it anyway all the time because it's fun. But now I have Patreon. And I think, well, okay, here's the time lapse, and I'll upload it to Planet Doug, but I'll keep it unlisted so nobody can see it other than Patreon members. And then Patreon, it's like, okay, you know that if you're getting something from Patreon, it's something extra. It's a bonus. It's something different from the norm. And I think people can wrap their heads around that idea. So when I upload a time lapse to Patreon and people get a notification, oh, here's a time lapse on Patreon, people won't complain about it and they won't be confused about it. They'll go, oh, look, oh, time lapse on Patreon. And then people who don't like them, well, they don't have to click on it. They don't have to watch it. And it's not on Planet Doug. It's not visible on Planet Doug. So I'm not going to confuse people and I'm not going to annoy people. So basically, there's going to be two worlds. I think about it like if you think about someone like Itchy Boots, she only posts big videos. Like she completely ignores everything else. Like there's nothing else going on in the background. She even has a Patreon and she has a website, but there's nothing on either one of them. I joined up. I don't know if... No, she doesn't have a Patreon. She has like a mailing list connected to her website. I think, yeah, Patreon is too small time for Itchy Boots. She doesn't need Patreon because she makes so much money through sponsorships and selling merchandise and now selling her book. And, you know, she's big time. She's much, much more intelligent than I am. So she doesn't need Patreon. But she doesn't have the same urge that I have. I have this deeply felt urge to talk about my life and to share things, basically to take my life and turn it into a story that I'm telling other people. That's how I view my life. I view it as if I'm a character in a novel, living in a fictional world, you know? So I've been doing it my whole life, even before YouTube. I lived my life through letters. So I would go out and do something, and then the next day I would write a letter to a friend describing what I did yesterday at length, and I would send people 100-page letters. So I have this urge to do this anyway. And someone like Itchy Boots, no, she doesn't have that urge. She shoots the videos because she makes a lot of money. If she wasn't making money from YouTube, I'm pretty sure she wouldn't be making these videos because she would just be out there living her life and enjoying her life. I don't think YouTube serves her any kind of instinct that she has. Like my YouTube channel, it doesn't make any money at all at the moment. I'd like to make some money, but my YouTube channel doesn't make any money, so I'm not doing it for money. Like even if I was independently wealthy, even if I were a millionaire and was financially independent, I would still be writing 100-page letters. I would still be taking pictures. I would still be shooting time lapses and potentially making YouTube videos. I would be doing it anyway. It's not because of the money. Well, as I said, I don't make any money. So right now, I don't do it. Which again, as a bit of an aside, it's kind of funny when I got all that criticism because of the he cracked my neck video. People were saying, "Oh, Saint Doug, he's become like every other YouTuber, and he's using clickbait, and now he's doing things just for the clicks, just for the views, just to make YouTube money." And those comments always make me laugh because I don't make any money. So this whole idea of he's just doing it for the money, I'm like, well, yeah, I'd love to do it for the money, but that's certainly not the reality, not the reality right now, of course. And the other side of it has always struck me as so illogical. It just makes me smile. I find it so silly. People, if they want to criticize a YouTuber, the first thing someone will say is, you're just doing it for the clicks. And the natural response to that criticism is like, well, duh, of course I'm doing it for the clicks. Like that's not an insult. It's sort of like going up to Spielberg, who's making a movie, and then you criticize him and you say, you're just making movies so somebody will buy a ticket and watch. You're just doing it so people will watch your movie. And Spielberg would look at you like you're insane. Like, well, yeah, of course. I make movies because I want to make something that people will enjoy watching. Why else would I be making a movie? Or, you might go up to a writer, someone who's writing a book, and then you say to them, you're just writing a book so people will buy it and read it. How stupid is that? Like, the writer would look at them like, well, duh. Well, of course I'm writing the book. I have a story I want to tell. I want to share it with people. I want people to read it and enjoy it. And so what? What are you saying exactly? Why is that a bad thing? I could go on and on and on. It's like these same people, they could go into a restaurant, go back to the kitchen and criticize the cook. Look at you, busy cooking your meals. You're only doing it so people will eat it. And they're like, well, yeah, of course I'm back here making delicious food because I want people to come to my restaurant and buy my food and enjoy my food. Why else would I be doing it? So then, I could go on and on and on. Then you can go to a YouTuber, and a YouTuber is out there making a video to post onto YouTube, and then you want to criticize them. It's like, look at you, you stupid YouTuber. You're just doing it for the clicks. And the YouTuber can look at them in the same puzzled way, like, yeah? Why is that a bad thing? Of course, I'm making a video to put it on YouTube, and I'm hoping people will enjoy it enough to watch it. And then they can leave comments, and I can reply to, yeah, of course I'm doing it for the clicks. The clicks is not an insult. It doesn't make it as an insult. It makes no sense at all. And then when someone criticizes a YouTuber saying you're just doing it for the clicks, all it tells me is that this person leaving the comment isn't very intelligent, or they're not thinking it through. They're not really thinking through what they're saying. There are lots of ways you can insult or criticize a YouTuber, but accusing them of wanting people to watch their video, that's not really an insult. It's look at you working at Starbucks, making your coffee. You're only doing it so people will drink your coffee and enjoy it. And like, well, yeah, exactly. Why is that an insult? Anyway, you're just trying to make the best coffee you can make so people will come here and buy your coffee. Yes, that is exactly what I'm doing. I don't know why you're criticizing me for that. Anyway, I always find that very amusing. Planet Doug is just doing it for the clicks. To be honest, that's not a bad slogan. Kind of a tongue-in-cheek, for Planet Doug, doing it for the clicks. I'm just here for the clicks. And wouldn't be a bad logo. But I don't know whether that kind of humor, it might be lost on a lot of people. So that was a major tangent. And what was I talking about? Oh, yeah, Patreon. And I was talking about how, I recently did post a time lapse to Planet Doug when I went to buy my ferry ticket. And I did something a little bit different with that time lapse. Normally, I just put music on it, time lapse and music. And this time, just to make it a little bit more interesting, I narrated. So I recorded a voiceover story along with the time lapse, and I did that because I knew I was using it as a filler. As I said, I knew I was taking a little bit of a break from Planet Doug videos, and I wouldn't have anything to post like full-sized, hour-long Planet Doug videos. So I thought, well, I've got this time lapse. Why don't I put it on Planet Doug? And I shot a little vignette of chatting with some students in Tanjung Balai. I shot that with my smartphone. It wasn't part of a big video. It was just a little toss-away moment that I recorded. And I was going to put that on Patreon. The time-lapse, I was going to put it on Patreon. That's why I shot it. But then I thought, there's going to be a week break here. Why don't I just put it on Planet Doug just to keep adding videos to Planet Doug for people to enjoy. But then I did get one comment, not a bad comment in any way, and it's from a regular Planet Doug viewer who wrote, yeah, I don't really dig the time lapses. I don't like them that much. He was saying he prefers the full edited videos. And yeah, I get it. And that's the normal comment I get whenever I post a time lapse to Planet Doug. Like I said, either people don't like it and they tell me, I don't really enjoy these, and I prefer the big videos. And of course, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, I'm still making the big videos. This time lapse is just a bonus. Why is that a bad thing? But people do always tend to react negatively to these bonus videos. So now that I have Patreon, all the bonus videos, they go over to Patreon. And I'm going to upload them to the behind the scenes channel. I think I still haven't quite figured out the logic here, because my behind the scenes channel seems to be fully dedicated to my journal. And I'm wondering whether I should keep it that way and I don't clutter it up, so that now when you go to that channel, it's only the podcast, it's only the journal. Planet Doug Behind the Scenes podcast. So then I almost need another YouTube channel like Planet Doug bonus videos, and then time lapses and sort of behind the scenes videos. Anything that's a bonus video would go to that channel. And then Patreon members would get early access to those bonus videos. They can watch them on Patreon, and then a week later, they become public. Because the idea is, if I put them on Planet Doug as a Patreon video early access, eventually they're going to become public. After 1 week, it's posted as a Planet Doug video, and then I'm going to get all the usual criticisms. This is a time lapse. I don't like time lapses. I don't like this. This is too short. This is too whatever. And now I'm cluttering up Planet Doug again. So it feels like I need to open up another Planet Doug channel, the Planet Doug bonus videos. Yeah, I like that idea. And then I can upload time lapses, bonus videos there. So I have one channel for that, one channel for behind the scenes podcast, and that keeps everything neatly organized. It might be too organized. I do have a tendency to overcomplicate things, but I do like things to be nicely grouped. I like things to be labeled and organized, and so I can keep track of things. So yeah, I kind of like this idea. Some of the idea I'm working with right now is to take all of the Planet Doug channels, the Learning Curve, behind the scenes podcast, bonus videos, and 360 videos, and POV videos, make them all separate channels, and then have them all grouped under the umbrella of the Planet Doug Patreon. Yeah, it's a little bit overly complicated, but I think my brain can handle it. And the interesting thing, I think, is that nobody else has to understand it, because if you go to Patreon, all you see is the video, right? You go to Patreon, it's, oh, time-lapse video. Oh, technology video. Oh, this video, that video. And then you click on it if you want to, and you can watch it. But it doesn't matter to you where it is, right? So even if it's overly complicated in the background, it shouldn't confuse people. But then again, I should never underestimate how easy it is for me to confuse people. I confuse people all the time. So yeah. I was even thinking of creating a Planet Doug English classroom channel, because I think about that all the time. Like, as I said, I'm not making any money from Planet Doug, so I don't know if I ever will. In the back of my mind, I keep thinking I'll eventually figure out what I'm doing. I'll make better videos, more people will watch them, and I could make a little bit of money from Planet Doug. But I've been doing it for so long now, and I've had zero success. And here it is. I think I've been doing it for 5 years, and after 5 years, I'm still trying to figure out what to do. So yeah, I'm not very good at it, apparently. So, it might be a good idea, if I enjoy making videos, to dip my toe into other topics. I've often thought about making an English teaching channel, but that's a pretty big undertaking to do it well. But I thought maybe I could just try it out. One thing that always happens to me is when I make a Planet Doug video and then I'm editing the video, I hear myself use an English idiom, a special expression, or a phrasal verb, or an interesting grammatical structure. And I think, if I were teaching English, I would teach that to my class. And then I thought, well, it'd be nice to have a little Planet Doug English classroom channel. And then I can sit down and just shoot a quick video about that. And then I can tie that in with my travel videos. So I've thought about that for years, actually. And I've never gotten around to doing it. But even as part of Patreon, I could establish a Planet Doug English classroom. And then from time to time, like once a month even, just as a bonus video, I assemble all the Planet Doug idioms and phrasal verbs, and I just talk about them all, and then make that a Patreon, a bonus video. And then if that video, when it becomes public, becomes super, super popular, and I get tens of thousands of views, well, then I can start, wow, people are more interested in English than they are in traveling. Then that gives me another direction to go in. And of course, I love pop culture, and I love talking about movies. I love watching movies, TV shows. Did I ever create a Planet Doug pop culture channel? I don't think I ever did, but I thought about it. And because I talk about them all the time. In fact, I believe that is what I'm going to talk about next once I finish talking about Patreon. No, I may talk about YouTube stories next. So yeah, that's where I am with Patreon. Today I'm going to set up my laptop, my new laptop, and once I have that working, that will allow me to really come to grips with Patreon, because it's hard to do on a phone. It's a little bit awkward. So yeah, I need my laptop for Patreon at the very least. So Planet Doug podcast continues, and the next section is YouTube stories. This should be a very short one because I only watched one YouTube travel video, and that was the newest one from Itchy Boots. I talked about it already, where she posted a new video from Turkey, and it's called Inside the Most Active Volcano of Turkey. You won't believe this. So in my previous podcast, I already talked about that title because I was already thinking about the whole clickbaity thing. And this kind of title from Itchy Boots, I guess it sort of toes the line, because the first part is very literal. surprisingly literal. Inside the most active volcano of Turkey. It's a little bit misleading, of course, but the volcano apparently is the most active. But of course, when you think about an active volcano, you're thinking about what you see here in Indonesia: smoke, lava, an actual volcano that is bubbling, threatening to erupt, and does erupt once or twice a year. That's an Indonesian active volcano. But I think this one in Turkey, I think she said the last time it erupted, but it would have been a long time ago. But essentially, that volcano looks like Lake Toba here in Sumatra. It's an old caldera that filled with water. So it's a huge volcanic crater. To be honest, it's an amazing sight. It's an amazing video. So, like, no criticism of the video at all. Her drone footage, I think she shot drone footage, yeah, she must have, of that lake, of the volcano, is amazing. It's so beautiful. But it's just a lake. It's a lake inside an old caldera. And there's no lava, there's no smoke, it's not erupting. So it's not actually active right now. But her title does give you the impression that you're going to see lava, bubbling lava pouring down a volcano, and you're going to see smoke rising into the sky as it's erupting, stuff like that. But you don't see any of that. And then she says, "You won't believe this." And I look at that askance. There's a good Planet Doug English classroom word, askance. I love good words like that. I look at that askance. And because, why won't I believe this? She's telling me, oh, you won't believe this, as if it's going to be so unbelievable. This active volcano, you're not going to believe it. But when I looked at it, and it was like, well, it's beautiful, but I have no trouble believing it. It's a very beautiful caldera lake. That's what I expected to see, a beautiful lake in a volcano. It's like, okay, look, I mean, there's nothing there, like, you won't believe this. I mean, a phrase like that is reserved for something really extraordinary. So, I mean, it's not technically clickbait, I guess. Perhaps it's more like my haircut video, a little bit sensational, a little bit dramatic, more than anything else. But I watched the whole video, and it did fit in with what I was talking about for her Turkey videos, where her videos seem to be a bit shorter and not as much drama, because it's pretty easy for her to ride through Turkey compared to other places she's been, particularly South America and Africa. And then now she's riding through Turkey, and she gets on her motorbike in the morning, rides to a beautiful place, flies her drone up in the mountains, drives down out of the mountains, and arrives at the next town. And there's a lot of history there, which I find interesting. But, And then so it ends up being relatively short and not a lot of drama. Like, there's no big emergencies. She doesn't crash. She doesn't get stuck in the mud. She doesn't run into soldiers and checkpoints and military like she did in Africa. So it's not a lot of drama, but beautiful, beautiful place, this volcano that she visited. Even for me, what I'm seeing in the videos is surprising me, because I used to dream about going to Turkey, but then I kind of lost that dream, because the only videos I saw from Turkey were like Istanbul. You see the whirling dervishes, you see the tourism markets and the tourism areas, and then people go to Cappadocia. Is that? I better go learn how to pronounce this word before I continue. All right, I just looked it up, and apparently both pronunciations are correct. Cappadocia or Cappadocia. Cappadocia or Cappadocia. Something like that. Anyway, that's the area where everybody goes, and I see videos from there all the time. It's probably the biggest attraction in Turkey right now. And people go up in the air in hot air balloons. I've seen those videos a million times. And then when I've seen travel videos of people going through Turkey, it just, I don't know, it just, nothing very special about the place jumped out at me. So I sort of lost my interest. I thought, it felt like if I went there, I would kind of heave a sigh. Like as a YouTuber, it'd be, okay, I'm in Turkey. I guess I have to go to Cappadocia and I got to go up in a hot air balloon. I'm sure I wouldn't, because I wouldn't be able to afford the hot air balloon trip. And then you got to go there. It all seemed a little bit over touristed, over visited. Like so much of Europe, that's the only story you see around the world right now. It's a big, big story. Or maybe it's because I'm always looking at these stories. So YouTube and Google, they know what my interests are. So every time I look at the news, all I see are articles about how there are too many tourists in Venice, too many tourists in Bali, too many tourists in London, too many tourists in France, and there's, people hate tourists everywhere in the world. And anyway, I see stories like that constantly whenever I go onto the internet. So it seems like it's a big story to me. But maybe it's because Google is just feeding my prejudices already. But anyway, it felt, I don't know, I kind of heaved a sigh, like I said. I thought, okay, now I'm in Turkey. I've got to go here and I have to go there. It just didn't really grab my interest. But Itchy Boots, her videos are showing me a new side of Turkey. Empty. There's nobody there. And like if you're bike touring, like I would probably be on a bicycle going through Turkey. I'd love to do that now because she's inspired me, because those mountainous areas look amazing. Very few people go there. It looks beautiful, so much history, and the people seem to be very welcoming, though you don't really get that from her videos as well. And at the risk of perhaps being too critical. No, it's not really being critical. It's something that interests me, because with my videos, it feels like anything I do, good or bad, will invite comment. Like suggestions like, oh, you should do this more. Why didn't you do this? And you should go there. And why did you do this? Like there seems to be a lot of thought goes into what I do or don't do. And then when I look at other travel YouTubers, I see the same thing, where you get a lot of criticism of them, mainly for things that they don't do. But then when you go to a really popular YouTuber like Itchy Boots, there's like no criticism at all. And I keep thinking, well, like I just watched her latest video from Turkey, the one where she went to the volcano. And I'm pretty sure if I made that video and posted it, people would say, oh, why don't you ever show the food you're eating? Because she doesn't really, she showed one meal. She got some kind of a snack at the side of the road. But she doesn't focus on Turkish food. She's probably been in Turkey for a month. I've watched all of her videos, but as a viewer of her videos, I don't know anything about Turkish food. According to her videos, Turkish food doesn't exist. So she never talks about Turkish food, never shows what Turkish food is, never goes to the market, never goes anywhere. And she never really, the only Turkish people she talks to are people who put gas in her motorcycle tank. Those are the only people she ever meets, because all she does is ride her motorcycle. And then when she needs gas, she goes to a gas station, and then a man comes out to put gas in the tank. And then the man always speaks to her in Turkish and says something in Turkish, and she always says in English, I don't speak Turkish, I don't understand. And then she assumes they're asking her, where are you going and where have you been? So then she shows on her GPS device, okay, here's my route, I'm going here. And the man looks and goes, okay. And I know, I'm positive if I posted that video, people would say, like, why don't you ever talk to local people? And people tell me about Google Translate all the time. Like if I ever put something in one of my videos where I had trouble communicating with a market seller, 5 people will leave a comment saying, oh, you should use Google Translate. And they're always telling me this as if I've never heard of Google Translate before. And I always reply and say, well, I use Google Translate constantly, like day and night. I have Google Translate open on all of my phones. I use it all the time. And yeah, that's another funny thing about my haircutting video, because when I was in Tanjung Balai and I went to the barber shop, and I knew I wanted to take video of the haircut, but I wanted to establish two things first. Like, would they be comfortable cutting my hair? Because I've been to a lot of countries where they tell me no, we can't. We don't want you in our barbershop. It's not because they don't like foreigners. It's because they don't know how. They think they don't know how to cut a foreigner's hair, and they don't want to make a mistake. Like, they're worried they won't be able to communicate with me, and they're worried that they'll cut my hair short when I didn't want it short. They'll make a mistake and I'll get upset with them, and they don't want to deal with the problem. So they say, no, not here, go somewhere else. So I always ask them first, is it okay? Like, can you cut my hair, i.e. a foreigner's hair? And they will say yes. So this guy said yes. And then I wanted to get his permission to record it on video. So I used Google Translate, and I typed out the message and I showed it to him. And like, is it okay? I'm a YouTuber. Can I record the haircut on video? So I do that all the time. And in this case, I just happened to have a camera running at that time. So I thought, oh, why don't I include this in the video? Because I thought people might criticize me for, you're always going out there and filming people without their permission, you dumb YouTuber, just for the clicks. So I thought, oh, well, I have this on video. And I thought there would be a comment on the video. Someone would say, oh, you ask for permission before you film. I think that's very good of you. But no, nobody commented on that at all. And the only comment I got was like several people criticizing me pretty strongly for bothering the barber. Like, look at you, you arrogant foreigner, you arrogant YouTuber. You just march in there and you're bothering the barber while he's cutting someone else's hair. And you bothered him twice. So instead of me getting credit for asking for permission, I was criticized for asking for permission and bothering the barber while he was cutting someone else's hair. And I can kind of see that, but at the same time, you sort of have to be here in Indonesia to understand the atmosphere. Right? If, like in Tanjung Balai, everywhere I go, everybody calls out to me and wants to talk to me, take pictures with me. They're inviting me to take video. Like, I can't go anywhere practically. Like, if all I want to do is go to the store to buy some coffee and go back to the hotel, if I stopped and took video and took pictures and had conversations with everyone who called out to me, it would take me 3 hours just to go to the store and back. So you're in this environment where me as a foreigner and as a YouTuber, everybody wants to be on video. Everybody wants to talk to me. Everybody wants to take pictures with me. And you just get used to that environment. So honestly, the environment as a foreigner in Sumatra, to go into a barbershop like that while he's cutting someone else's hair and just sort of stop him for a second. Like, how long did it take, honestly? And then I just say to the guy, here, can you read this? And then he looked at me and gave me a thumbs up. Lasted, 5 seconds, if that. So it really was not disturbing him. It was not disturbing the other customer. And there was one element in the criticism I got, which I thought was kind of interesting. Something about the top of the head. I guess maybe when I went up to the barber to ask him, the other customer was in the chair getting his hair cut, and maybe the top of his head was in the video because he was sort of reclining in the barber chair. And this is something that I get told all the time. Like from the very first day I went to South Korea decades ago, you are told certain things that are taboo in Asia. Like there's millions of websites that will give you this advice. Oh, when you go to Asia, make sure you don't do this and don't do this and do this and do this. They give you all the do's and don'ts of etiquette. And they always tell you, like in North America, you always see people touch children on the top of the head. It's a friendly gesture to ruffle their hair. You know, like a little boy runs up to you in the park, and he's like someone you know, the son of your friend or your nephew, whatever, and you're trying to be friendly and jokey, and you sort of ruffle the top of their head, like, you scamp, go out there and play. That's a normal North American gesture, and everybody says, don't do that in Asia, because it is so offensive, because the top of the head is considered holy and spiritual, and you never, ever, ever touch people on the top of the head. And they say you never point with one finger, because that is considered so rude. Like in North America, we point with one finger all the time, but they say in Asia, never do that. You have to use your whole hand. You have to indicate using your whole hand, and never point the soles of your feet at anyone. So whenever you sit down and you stretch out your legs, you shouldn't do that. Always hide your feet, because your feet are considered dirty. And if you point the soles of your feet at someone, it's a terrible, terrible insult. They tell you all these things, and you're so worried about them. I think about them all the time. And yet when I'm in Asia, the local people do these things all the time. Like I'm told that, you never ever point with your finger. But Indonesians point with their finger all the time. And then, everywhere I go, everybody does. And you're hanging out with the local people, and you're sitting on the ground, you're hanging out with them wherever you are, they'll sit and point their feet at you all the time. So these rules are not as strict. They only seem to apply them to foreigners. And the weird thing is that foreigners apply them to other foreigners. We foreigners are like the police of proper etiquette. So if you're a YouTuber and in your video you use your finger to point at something, other foreigners will tear you apart. Oh, that is so rude. You should never, ever point using your finger like that. But only other foreigners ever tell you this. The local people, they don't really care. And even if it is sort of a rule of etiquette, because you're a foreigner, they understand. They cut you a break. It's like, okay, you're from Canada, you don't really know our culture, so they'll give you a pass. And then I notice that they point with their finger too. And then when it comes to sort of putting people on video or taking picture with them, like Indonesians, man, I'm on videos all the time. Like I don't capture these moments on my videos, but when I'm out walking around, local people will call out to me, point at me with their finger and say, you, come, and they drag me over into their group, and then they basically use me like a puppet. They grab me and push me into a certain location, and then they'll just use me almost like a prop. Like if I'm posing with some children or a woman and they want me to crouch down to get lower, or they want to do something funny like give a peace sign or a thumbs up or do this, they tell me what to do, and then they'll start recording video and they'll start playing music. This has happened to me in Tanjung Balai, and they make me dance. They say, okay, you dance, and they make me dance on video with this other woman so that they can get it on video to post to their social media. So what I'm getting at is the local people are absolutely fine with all of this. They, no matter what I'm doing, eating, drinking, walking, anything I'm doing, everybody will come up to me, interrupt me, take pictures with me, shoot video with me, make me dance, like foreign monkey, dance, we want to get you on video. And I don't mind at all. I'm used to it. It's fun. It's a wonderful place to hang out. So in that environment, it's okay for me to go into a barber shop and then go up to the barber even while he's working and just for 5 seconds go, listen, do you mind if I shoot video during my haircut? But then, of course, people criticize me. But then, bringing this topic all the way around, I do end up watching an Itchy Boots video. And like this one, when I watched it, it had 1,500 comments. Every comment was praising her video to the skies. And I'm pretty sure if I posted that video, I would get tons of comments saying, how come you never talk to local people? How come you don't try to speak Turkish? How come you don't use Google Translate? How come you don't eat Turkish food? How come you don't show where you're staying? How come you don't talk about how much things cost? Why don't you ever talk about the history of where you are? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? You should do this. You should go there. I would be bombarded with all that kind of stuff. And yet somehow Nora Lee, I guess because her videos are just so good on their own merits, nobody ever, they praise her for what's in the video, but nobody ever comments about what's missing from the video. They just take it on face value. It's like, oh, this is a video about riding a motorcycle, showing beautiful scenery. That's what it's about, and everybody loves it. But again, like I said, if I made that video here in Sumatra, yeah, I'd hear about it. They'd be like, hey, what's going on? Where's the food? We need 5-snack challenge videos. We need to see you talking to local people. Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? People would point out all the things that are missing from my video rather than focusing on what's in the video. And I guess that's probably because my videos are not that great to begin with. I suppose if I made an amazing video that was super, super wonderful, then people would just watch it for what it is and they wouldn't worry about what it isn't. But yeah, anyway, that is my, those are my thoughts about YouTube stories right now and the latest video from Itchy Boots. But yeah, I'm going to watch all her videos. I'm enjoying them very much. So yeah, inside the most active volcano of Turkey. And my Canadian fellow YouTuber, Eric, from the Unamoto, he posted a brand new video. The last podcast I was talking about the video where he crashed his drone and he went to this beautiful, beautiful lake in the Rocky Mountains. Wonderful video. Very, very enjoyable. But that video was part 1 and a part 2 is coming. He already posted part 2, but I haven't watched it yet. So I'll talk about that in my next podcast episode. So today I'm going to wind things up with a little bit of pop culture, a pop culture roundup. And the main show that is on my mind right now is the 2nd season of Silo. And I'm not going to talk about it in depth and give lots and lots of spoilers, but there will be some spoilers. So like in terms of season 1, what the show is about, who the characters are and what they're doing and what they have done. I think I'll end up talking a little bit about some of that stuff. So if you haven't seen the 1st season of Silo and you intend to watch it, then stop listening to me right now. This is your spoiler alert, your official spoiler alert. I'm going to be talking about the show, and I'll probably mention some details from season 1, etc. So, spoiler alert, stop listening now if you don't want to hear more. So basically, the last episode was episode 3 of season 2. And we've reached the point where Juliet, played by Rebecca Ferguson, so she's the main character, Juliet, of course. At the end of season 1, she was kicked out of her silo. Basically, they sent her out to clean. And then, of course, Juliet is learning about all the secrets of the silo, all the mysteries of the silo. And because she knows things that most people don't know, instead of cleaning, instead of cleaning the camera lens, she went up to the camera, held up the cleaning cloth, and then dropped it, like a dramatic gesture saying, I'm not going to clean. And then she walked away and went over the hill and disappeared. And that was the big sort of cliffhanger, I think, for season 1. And, well, I think more happened. I think she actually made it to the next silo. But, of course, Juliet as a character, she didn't know what was out there. Her entire world, where she was born, where her parents were born, where her grandparents, great-grandparents, generation after generation after generation, all they've known is the silo, which is underground. They don't know anything else. They don't know about the outside world. They don't know where they are. They don't know why they're there. They don't know the history of the world. They don't even know the world exists. All they know is this underground silo. So when she went outside the silo, she didn't know anything. But then all she did was walk over this hill, and then everything she saw from that point on was brand new to her. And then she ended up coming to another silo, which had a door exactly like the door of her silo. And she managed to break into it and go into this other silo. And that's where season 2 picks up, now that she's inside another silo. And of course, this silo has a history where they had a revolution in that silo, and almost everybody is dead. So as they, the way they film season 2, they're filming Juliet sometimes from a distance. You know how they do that in movies and TV shows? They aim the camera like around the corner or through a fence or through a gap in the wall. And it gives the impression that somebody is watching her. The camera is watching her, but you get the feeling you're looking at her from the point of view of another human being. So they're hinting that there are people still alive in the silo. And we do learn that there is one person in particular. He calls himself Solo because he lives in the silo all by himself. As far as he's aware, he's the only person, the only survivor in that silo. So he calls himself Solo. Yeah, he's a very interesting character. It's played by Steven Zahn, and I really, really like Steven Zahn as an actor, and I think he's doing an exceptional job. He was a perfect casting choice for Solo, and Steven Zahn is great. He's not like a movie star. He's not Brad Pitt. He's not, he's not a movie star. He's not a leading man, but he's been in so many movies, so many TV shows. But I don't know if I would call him a character actor either. He's not, is he a character actor? He's somewhere in between a movie star and a character actor. But I like him in everything he does. And I like to see him in shows. And he's able, like a movie star sometimes has trouble playing characters, like Brad Pitt now. He's always Brad Pitt. Tom Cruise is always Tom Cruise. I mean, he does play other characters, but they don't really lose themselves in those other characters. You're always seeing the movie star. But someone like Steven Zahn, he disappears into the character, and you completely accept him as a new person every time you see him. At least I do. So I think he's doing a very, very good job in Silo. So I'm enjoying the new season very, very much. But my one criticism of Silo in general, the TV show, and it occurs to me all the time, they don't do a very good job of conveying just how isolated these people are. And I need more of that. Because as I'm watching the show, as the viewer, I mean, I know what we're dealing with. Like, I know what happened. We're dealing with post-apocalyptic Earth. So, Earth, human civilization, suffered an apocalypse, wiped out the entire human race. We don't know why. Was it a nuclear war? Was it an asteroid? Was it a virus? Was it just toxins, pollution? We don't know what happened, but the entire human race was wiped out, and the only survivors are living in these bunkers underground that they call silos. So we know that, and we know that they've been living in the silos for so many generations that they lost all history. They've lost everything. It's a little bit complicated, but I think when people were living in the silos originally, like the original inhabitants, of course, they came from the surface. So they knew about the world. They knew about the history of the world and the human race. They knew about animals, trees, flowers, lakes, volcanoes, continents, glaciers, continental drift, dinosaurs. They knew everything. They knew about computers, cars, smartphones, internet. They came from a world where all that existed. They run into the silos, but then the generations have been living there for so long that all those original people have died. And then in all the silos, there was a revolution. So I think what happened is at the very beginning, they still had computers, they still had libraries, they still had access to information. So the people knew about the outside world. They probably had schools, they had education. But then every silo had a revolution for various reasons. And then because of that, all history was lost. And the silo became a self-contained civilization with its own history, and they have no memory of where they came from. They have no access to books. There are no books, there are no movies, there are no TV shows, there is no history, there are no maps. There is basically zero knowledge. And there might be a few people in the upper class, like the upper echelon. They are the only people that know anything at all about the outside world. And it's almost like a religious fanaticism where they keep all the people in the silo ignorant. And they keep them ignorant because they know that if they're given knowledge, society will fall apart. There will be another rebellion, a revolution, and society will be destroyed in the silo. So that's what the world we're dealing with. And as a viewer, I'm aware of it. And yet, when you're watching the show from the point of view of the characters, you somehow get the impression that the characters know about history and know about the outside world, right? You don't really get the sense of how ignorant they are, how cut off they are. Like, this is a science fiction world, almost like a Twilight Zone episode or a Star Trek episode, where people are locked in a room with no idea how they got there, and they have no idea what's outside the room. But they don't really convey how extreme it is. So, for example, when Juliet left her silo and she went into the other silo and she was talking to Solo, she didn't know about birds. She didn't know what birds were, but Solo did. Like, she was talking about this video that she saw, and she said, "Oh, and there were these creatures in this video, creatures." And then Steven Zahn's character, Solo, he said, "Oh yeah, those are birds." And then Juliet looks at him like, "Birds? What are birds? I've never heard about birds." Because in her world, she didn't know about animals. She didn't know about birds. She'd never heard the word before. And then Steven Zahn, as Solo, was trying to find out where she came from. And he asked her, like, "Okay, when you came out of the silo, where was the sun? Like, where was the sun in the sky?" And he was trying to ask her, like, was it in the east or the west? Or was it straight up in the sky? And was it moving? And Juliet was looking at him like he was crazy. Like, "What are you talking about?" Because she doesn't know about the sun. She doesn't know about east, west. She doesn't know that the sun rises and falls. She doesn't know about sunrise and sunset. This is her first time seeing anything outside of her silo. So the extreme nature of their ignorance I find absolutely fascinating. And the show doesn't really get that across, at least not to me. So I think the show would be a lot more fun, like looking at things from Juliet's point of view, where she leaves the silo and she's seeing things for the first time. And we don't really get to share in the wonder of her discoveries because, I don't know, the show isn't really about that. It isn't focusing on that. And I kind of wanted more. I wanted to join in her sense of wonder, like birds. And I went like, what are birds? And then Steve's on, if he knows about these things, can tell her, well, yeah, there used to be hundreds, thousands of species of birds that could fly through the sky. And then Juliet would be like, fly? What's fly? What do you mean by fly? Because she would have no knowledge of anything. All of this would be brand new to her. And then, of course, yeah, on and on and on. So that's my one criticism of the show. They don't really do a good enough job in terms of world building to show us how isolated these people were living in the silo. And I would have enjoyed a bit more of that. But other than that, I'm enjoying it very, very much. And I'm looking forward to the next episode. And I think that is it for this morning's podcast. I wasn't even going to record anything this morning. I was just going to get started with setting up my laptop. But I had things I wanted to talk about, and as I enjoy my morning coffee, I thought I would do that. So that's it. Shutting down for now, and the rest of the day is going to be challenging, very, very fun. Like in my lifetime, I haven't really done this very often. I know it's kind of a ridiculous story, considering like when I was living in Taiwan, I worked on computers all the time. At work, of course, I was an English editor working in a modern office. I recorded in a studio using a computer with an audio editing program. And in my apartment, my tiny rooftop paradise, I had a desktop computer. It was an old one that I bought from another foreigner, like an English teacher who was leaving the country, and then they sell everything that they own, and I bought this used desktop computer. So I had a computer. But I never really kept up with technology. So technology was advancing really, really fast while I was in Taiwan, but for some reason I wasn't paying any attention to it. So smartphones exploded, but I never bought one. Tablets exploded, never bought one. I never really even knew what a smartphone was or what a tablet was, how they were different from computers, what they could or couldn't do. I had the money, so it's kind of ridiculous that I didn't keep up with technology, but I guess I didn't have a need for it. My life was a very simple one in terms of technology. And I had a computer at my desk at work. I had a computer on my desk at the apartment. And I had a Nokia candy bar phone that I could use to send text messages. That's all I needed. I didn't even have a digital camera. I had a film camera. I was still buying rolls of film and taking pictures on film. So I didn't really know much. And then I never bought a laptop. And then years and years and years and years went by. And then I left Taiwan. I still didn't upgrade. I didn't buy a smartphone. I didn't buy a laptop. I didn't buy a tablet. I didn't have anything. And the first time I bought a laptop was in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. I flew there after the Philippines. I spent like 2.5 years in the Philippines. And then I flew to Malaysia. And then there I bought my first smartphone. and I bought my first laptop. It was a Dell Inspiron 13-inch or Dell Inspiron 11. Yeah, Dell Inspiron 11 cost $300, and I didn't know anything at that time. I think back now, it was really quite funny because I bought it, but I didn't really know what I was buying at that time. I didn't need a powerful laptop. I wanted to spend a very small amount of money, and I've just bought a student-oriented laptop for $300, and I brought it back to my hostel. I was staying in the cheapest hostel in all of Kuala Lumpur, and I didn't know about Wi-Fi. I honestly didn't. I heard people talk about Wi-Fi. I knew you connected to Wi-Fi, but I didn't know what it was. And then I'm turning on the laptop, and I'm going through the installation process, but I didn't really know what I was doing at all. And I was just following the instructions like this. The Windows walks you through it. Install Windows here, do this here. And then it said, okay, you need to connect to Wi-Fi. And I'm sitting there staring at the thing, and I'm going, how? I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know what Wi-Fi was. I didn't know how to connect to it. I didn't really know what it was. Though that's how dumb I was when I arrived in Kuala Lumpur. And so then I figured it out, obviously. I may have asked other people and tried to pretend I wasn't, as dumb as I actually was. Because I didn't want to walk up to people and say, what is Wi-Fi? Why is my computer asking me for Wi-Fi? But I don't remember what I did, but I eventually figured it out. And then I set up this laptop. But that's the only time I've ever done it on a Windows laptop. Now, this Asus TUF that I have, this is the second time. And this Asus TUF is a far more advanced, more powerful, more complicated machine. And of course, Windows and the internet, everything has become far more complicated and more advanced. So I'm thinking that with a laptop this powerful and this complicated, maybe I should be doing all kinds of special things. Like, is there a list of do's and don'ts? Like, for example, this laptop has 2 SSD drives. My mystery benefactor was very, very generous. And when he bought the laptop, he asked the store where he got it, what's the maximum amount of memory you can put into this machine? And they told him the maximum amount was 4 terabytes, 2 terabyte SSD drives, because it has 2 slots. And he says, okay, put that in. And when I was in Kuala Lumpur, I saw this laptop in a computer store. I went to Loyat Plaza, and then I saw it there on display, and then I was talking to the sales clerk, and I was kind of curious about everything to do with the laptop, because I was a little bit worried, and I'm still worried, that it wasn't the right choice for me. It may have been a mistake, because it could be too big and too heavy for me. I haven't decided about that yet. When I got the laptop in Jakarta, it was inside the box, and the power brick was in the box, the cord was in the box was in the box, and the box alone weighed, I think, 1.5, maybe 2 kilograms, just the box. So when my mystery benefactor handed me the box, it was a big effort to even hold on to it. It was like, whoa, that's heavy. And then he made a comment about how, not that he's glad to get rid of it, but it's like, yeah, I carried this all the way from my entire trip to get here. I was carrying this box, and my arm is kind of tired because it's so heavy. And I was like, oh boy, did we make a mistake and buy something that's too heavy? So I'm still kind of worried about that. But we'll see how it goes. And I'm hoping that it's not too heavy, and I'm hoping that the power of it, the abilities it has makes up for the weight. It's like, okay, you could have bought a laptop that weighs half as much, like a 13-inch, like a Dell XPS 13-inch model or something like that. But at the time, we were looking for a really powerful video editing laptop. And once you start thinking about that, then you want a discrete GPU, a separate GPU with its own cooling fans, its own memory, all that sort of thing. And that adds a kilogram or two to your laptop. There's no getting away from it. When I was in Kuala Lumpur recently and I was hanging out with Daryl, actually this was a long time ago, months ago, he showed me what a GPU was, and I didn't know. We were in a computer store, and he pointed at a shelf and says, okay, like up there, that's the NVIDIA GeForce GTX 4060. And I'm like, what are you talking about? That box, that big box up there, that's the GPU. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I thought a GPU was a chip, like a little chip that you put into your computer. And then, you pick up that box, and the box weighs 2 kilograms. And I'm like, that's the GPU? He said, well, yeah, it has its own everything. It's like a little computer by itself. It has its own cooling fans, its own power supply, its own memory. And I'm like, oh, I had no idea. Like, do I really need one of those? And he's like, well, if you want to edit 4K video and you don't want to wait 10 hours for it to finish processing and exporting, well, yeah, you need one of these. I'm like, okay, yeah, let's do that. And then thinking along those lines, and then thinking, yeah, for a variety of reasons, my mystery and benefactor and we decided, I told him it was my choice. I looked at all the laptops that were out there, and I was trying to look at mid-range, like low-budget laptops. I wasn't looking at high-end laptops. If we were looking at like super, super expensive ones, then it's an easy choice, but I'm looking at the low-end ones. And the Asus TUF seemed like a really good choice. Discrete GPU, a lot of power, a lot of ports, a lot of this, a lot of that, military grade toughness. It seemed to have everything, and it seemed to be in the right price range for what my mystery benefactor was thinking about spending. At least that's what I assumed. We never actually talked about the price, but he was suggesting certain laptops, and I saw, okay, like that's the price range. He was actually suggesting laptops that were far more expensive than what I thought he was willing to offer to me. Of course, whenever I look at anything, I'm always thinking about the cheapest. So, even the ones he was suggesting, I thought, oh, wow, I had no idea you were considering such a generous gift. And then I started looking at laptops in that price range, and then the Asus TUF fell into that price range, and it seemed to have all the capabilities and all the specs that I needed. So I wrote back to him and said, okay, I think I found one. What do you think about this? Because he was also looking at like Black Friday sales. They were having all these big sales, and what was being sold at a really good price. And I wasn't sure whether this laptop was available at a sale price. And I sent him the name of this one. Okay, what do you think about this one, the TUF Asus A16 Advantage gaming computer with these specs? A Ryzen 7 processor, Ryzen GPU. And then he wrote back and said, yeah, I can get you that one. So I went, okay, let's do that one. I think we found a winner. And I knew it was a bit heavier than my other laptops, but it didn't seem outrageously heavy. But I guess I didn't factor in the power cord, and I didn't factor in the power brick. And that power brick, I don't think I've weighed it by itself, Let me do that right now, just to make this story as complete as possible. So I just did a bit of weighing, and what I'm trying to do, of course, is make myself feel better that this new laptop is significantly heavier than my old ones. And I think I made some progress in that regard. So I still had a record of my old laptops, like the MacBook that I was using for a long time. It was pretty small. I mean, it was a 13-inch screen. So the MacBook plus the power cord, like the whole package, came to 1.7 kilograms. And the Asus VivoBook that I was just using for a little while, not for video editing, but just for general computer work, the Asus VivoBook was 2 kilograms. And the Asus, the new one, the big boy, the beast, the laptop only, like just the laptop, is 2.2 kilograms. So just the laptop is 0.2 kilograms heavier than the Asus VivoBook, the whole thing, laptop plus power brick. And then the power brick, that's the killer. I mean, the laptop itself, to be honest, 2.2 kilograms is nothing to sneeze at. I mean, you could spend another $1,000 and get it down to 1.5 kilograms or something like that. But it really isn't that big a deal. So the laptop at 2.2 kilograms, cool. It feels a little bit heavy to me right now, but that's because I'm used to handling the lighter MacBook and VivoBook. But for this type of laptop, that's pretty good. If you're getting a laptop that's a full-featured video editing laptop with a discrete GPU and 2 SSD drives, etc., coming in at 2.2 kilograms, you should be happy with that. But then I took out the power brick, and man, it is a chunk. The power brick and the cord together weighs 0.8 kilograms. It's really heavy. It's almost 1/3 of the weight. Well, it's more. Yeah, it's more than 1/3 of the weight, I think. Yeah, of the whole laptop. It's a beast. I don't know why the power brick has to be so heavy for a laptop. But anyway, so you combine it, and this new laptop is 3 kilograms. And that is compared to the Asus VivoBook at 2 kilograms. So it's 1 kilogram heavier. And I'm making myself feel better about that because right now I'm carrying around 2 external hard drives because the MacBook and the VivoBook, they don't have enough memory to store video files, right? So I store everything in these 2 external hard drives, and they alone weigh almost 0.8 kilograms. So in fact, I can, if it's a question of total weight, so let's say I've got my backpack, and in my backpack I put this new laptop that weighs a total of 3 kilograms, I can pretty easily rummage through my backpack and remove enough items to make up for it. So like just now, for example, I pulled out my 2 hard drives, which I don't need anymore. I mean, if I've got 4 terabytes of memory in the laptop, then I don't even need to carry around these external hard drives. And even if I do, I'm going to get SSD drives in the future because these HDD drives are too heavy and they all break down after a while anyway. So basically, to make up for 3, well, it's not even 3, it's basically 1 kilogram, right? 1 kilogram of extra weight for this laptop. And I can easily remove the 2 hard drives and say my umbrella, because I always carry around an umbrella, which technically I don't really need. I mean, how many people are traveling around the world with an umbrella in their backpack? Not many people. So if I take out the umbrella and I take out the 2 hard drives, there it is, 1 kilogram right there. and then I've made enough room for it. And that's just off the top of my head. I mean, there's so many things I carry with me that normal people don't. And even on my bicycle, like I'm thinking about going bike touring, I have a front rack on my bike that I don't even use. I don't mount any bags on the front of my bike. And that thing, let me check very quickly. I just checked online, and that front rack that I use, it by itself weighs over a kilogram, and I don't even use it. So if I go cycling around Sumatra, in terms of the total weight that I'm carrying with me, all I need to do is remove the front rack, and I've saved 1 kilogram. And that makes up for the weight of the power brick for this laptop. Same thing with water. I often leave in the morning with 3 full water bottles for a total of, it's like 4.5 liters of water. That's 4.5 kilograms of water. So all I need to do is remove 1 water bottle, and right there is 1.5 kilograms of weight that I'm no longer carrying on my bike. So anyway, I shouldn't get too worked up about how heavy the power brick is, because I can easily make up for the extra weight. It's more about whether the laptop is useful to me. And it will definitely be extremely useful to me. Certainly be a lot more useful than 2 hard drives I don't need, and an umbrella, and a front rack that I don't even use. So, yeah. All right, that's the end of today's Planet Doug podcast. Shutting down for now, and now begins the fun part. I'm going to start setting up the laptop. I don't know how to do it. I hope I don't make any mistakes, but that is what is going to happen today. All right, thank you once more for hanging out with me on the podcast, and I hope you enjoyed some of my stories and my rambling, and I hope you come back for the next one, and I'll talk to you again at that time.